Every once in a while, he will bite me, scratch me. And he does this because sometimes he forgets that he is safe now. And I forgive him when he bites me because I know what it is like to never feel safe. And that is because of you.
Nadia.
Go on, Sayid. Do your work.
Hi, I'm Lars, and this is my land. In my land, I get to do pretty much whatever I want. So today I'm going to talk about the most intense scene in Lost that we don't talk about, and you're going to listen because it's my land. I cover stuff on TV, movies, the Beatles, really anything that strikes my fancy. But you can always expect it to be way too long, way too in-depth, and way too obnoxious. Speaking of, I made a 7-hour video on the TV show Lost, and if you haven't seen it, you should check it out. Please like and subscribe, comment if you're nasty. If you're into Beatles stuff, I'm doing song breakdowns on my Patreon, patreon.com/LarsLand, and the Ticket to Ride song breakdown is available for everyone, so you should check it out. By the way, I don't actually know if this is a scene that we talk about or not. I do not check out any content creation surrounding the Beatles or Lost because I like to stay in my own lane, and when I watch YouTube or listen to podcasts, that's for fun for me, not for comparison for my work. So I have no idea, but I feel like in my time watching Lost, the things that stick out to me, this didn't make the list at first, but it was always like, damn, that. Shortly after this scene happens, we just kind of skid on by, we move on. So today I wanted to stop and smell the trauma. If this isn't apparent, anything I cover on Lost is oops, all spoilers. If you don't know the show, you might not know what I'm talking about. And if you don't want things spoiled for you, please go elsewhere. Drew Gooden did a video on the TV show Lost a couple years ago, and it's great. But if you want to stick around, this is your place, baby.
I think you've never actually tortured anybody in your life.
Unfortunately for us both, you're wrong.
In case if you haven't watched Lost in a while, I'm gonna go over Sayid's backstory. Sayid is serious and smart. He can fix most things, beat up most people, and survive in most places. He's a pretty good second in command, which is a position that he does eventually earn with Jack, spoken or otherwise. He's loyal, willing to help, and he gives great input, but he doesn't make big decisions on his own. He values the input of others. This is all pretty dry and unfunny, right? That's because Sayid is dry and unfunny. He does do a little bit of smiling early on in season 1, but I see that directorial decision shifts pretty quickly. He becomes quite serious. He grew up in Iraq and joined the Republican Guard, a highly specialized and trained militia that reported directly to Saddam Hussein during Desert Storm. When he first came to the island, he said he was a communications officer, but really, he was a torturer. While Sayid is an interrogator, he is commanded to question a woman named Nadia he knows from childhood. And as far as Sayid's childhood goes, we don't know a whole lot, but we know that he stood up for his brother Omar, who was being forced to kill a chicken. He can't do it, so Sayid just killed it for him. He broke the bird's neck and emotionlessly handed the bird to his father. Sayid, barely out of toddlerhood, was praised for his violence.
عافية عليك يا سعيد.
Nadia knew that young Sayid, not the bird snapping, but the one that she used to pick on and kick. The one that didn't really understand that pulling hair and things like that means a girl likes you. And she touches on that part of him. And Sayid can't bring himself to question her because she knows him. So he doesn't hurt her, and he does his best to sneak her food. She's a good woman, and she never, ever lets Sayid off the hook. She won't forgive him for what he's doing, and he can't forgive himself when she eventually puts a mirror up to his actions.
Tell me or I swear I will hurt you.
Oh, I know, Sayid. This is not my first interrogation by the Republican Guard.
She doesn't talk, and Sayid is ordered to execute her. Instead, he shoots his commander dead and himself in the leg. He forces Nadia to take the gun and says,
Please, Nadia. Take it and go.
she escapes. After the war is over, Sayid falls back on his skill set to aid the U.S. Army. He works for the U.S. government operatives for more information on Nadia's whereabouts. Does it always involve hurting people? No. This part is murky, honest. He says once that when he was first asked to torture someone, he went on to do it for 6 years. Was that during the war? How much of that is after the war? Am I looking too far into it? Absolutely. But I don't want to screw this up. Here's the solid information I do have on post-war. It often involves using his connections, sometimes betraying old friends who have become radicalized, to get this information on Nadia. When he boards Oceanic Flight 815, he is heading to LA where he has a lead. Nadia reportedly lives there. However, when he is on the island, he says that Nadia is dead.
You want to know who I am?
My name is Sayid Jarrah, and I am a torturer.
Before we get into everything, we need to talk about, in reality, the efficacy of torture. Fun times, but torture doesn't work in real life. It is explored more heavily in the Harvard-published and widely available book, Why Torture Doesn't Work by Shane O'Mara. However, if you would like a shorter explanation, Scientific American published an article entitled, We've Known for 400 Years That Torture Doesn't Work, which breaks it down in a more palatable way. We do know that. However, we are talking about a magic island tied to a tree.
In a jungle of mystery.
In this world, torture does work. In reality, there is no such thing as a human lie detector, but in Lost, Sayid is the closest thing to a lie detector test that we can find.
Jack called me a liar in front of every man, woman, and child I've come to know over the past month.
I know when I'm being lied to.
He is, in most cases, very hard, if not impossible, to deceive. We see a pretty solid instance early on that he can be fooled or blinded when he is incredibly emotional, and we're about to talk about it. But otherwise, if Sayid says something's dodgy, it is. We're getting into what I just talked about, the time where Sayid was blinded by emotion, but we're also talking about remorse and when we, as an audience, suspend it. Sawyer starts out really rough in the show. I mean, by the end of the show, he's like, we love him. He's amazing. He's James at that point. At the beginning of the show, no, he is awful. He's almost worse than Shannon. What level of asshat do you have to be to make Shannon look sympathetic? At this point in the season? We're only at episode 8, and even Sawyer's flashbacks in The Confidence Man showing him being a con man, it doesn't really give him a lot of sympathy at that point. Not a lot. Here's the deal. Shannon has asthma. She's lost her inhaler refills. It was in Boone's luggage because she would have lost them, left them behind something. And Boone saw Sawyer reading Watership Down, a book that was in Boone's bag. So naturally you assume that Sawyer, the pack rat / the looter, would have taken Boone's luggage and therefore have access to holding on to the inhaler for whatever level of power he would need it for later.
I don't know what kind of commie sharefest you're running over in Cave Town, but down here,
Possession's 9/10.
Boone goes to Jack and says, hey, this is a problem. Jack goes to Sawyer and tries to kind of shit talk, bully him out of, give me the inhalers. It does not work.
Give me the inhalers. Now.
Shannon's asthma is worsening quickly. It's scary. She's losing her color. And while Jack does get her to calm down a little bit, breathe in through the nose, out through the nose, in through the nose, out through the nose, that's only the physiological effects. This can only hold off for such an amount of time. And this is where we see Sayid, who has kind of seen a little bit of Shannon, you know, as a person, go up to Jack and says, what happens if she doesn't get her medication? Jack looks at him and he says, okay, let me talk to Sawyer. I can get it. And Jack's like, no, I'll get it. And Sayid says, no, I will get it. I know how to get him to talk. And this is when we first start seeing these badass lines from Sayid talking about his previous profession.
I thought you were a communications officer.
Part of my training entailed getting the enemy to communicate.
So the pair get Sawyer while he's taking a nap. They tie him up, jungle full of mystery. And after a few good swift kicks and punches, Sawyer's still not giving up the information. So Sayid sharpens some bamboo and he says, we don't have these in Iraq. We have reeds, but the effect is similar. Jack says, we don't have to do this. And Sawyer says, yeah, we do.
It doesn't have to be this way.
Yeah, it does.
And that is something I do talk about in my big video. And by the way, the big video, it's good, okay? It is very good. I worked on it for a really long time. It is not great. And I will be doing another big lost video that I do expect to be about 12 to 15 hours. I mean that wholeheartedly. I made a lot of mistakes. I used my cell phone audio for a lot of it. It's just not the best. Sayid stands there and he turns into something that we haven't really seen. Sawyer's always putting on this tough guy act, but he has the most expressive face on the cast. He looks sad, mad, angry, confused, all the things. Sayid doesn't always have that. And Sawyer says, you know what?
I think you've never actually tortured anybody in your life.
Unfortunately for us both, you're wrong.
He goes after him. He clears Sawyer's sinuses. Sawyer eventually agrees he will only tell Kate. Kate makes out with him, unties him.
I don't have it. Madison. I don't have it. Never did.
And here's where we see Sayid saying, he's lying. He's lying. He says he doesn't have it. He's lying. I know he's not telling the truth. Here's the thing. Sawyer was lying about a lot of things, but he wasn't lying about this. Maybe that's what the deception was. But Sayid is blinded by anger in this moment. He gets in a fight with Sawyer and stabs him in the arm. This part is an accident. It hits the artery. This is a very dangerous situation, and that's a whole different story. Sawyer does recover. It gets a little rough. But Sayid remembers how Nadia put a mirror up to his actions. He went back somewhere that he promised he would never go. And therefore, he chooses to leave the camp. He tells Kate, I'm leaving. Somebody has to map the island. It might as well be the only person that I trust. And he goes. He goes off and he finds this rope in the beach. He follows it there and winds up in a trap. Even though he caught the trap, he still wound up in the trap because Rousseau's traps are insane. And he is on a table being asked,
Alex. With Alex. Where Alex? Where is Alex?
Sayid is saying, I don't know who that is. I don't know. And eventually he gets this woman, the French woman, the one behind the 16 years running French recording.
I'm alone now. I'm out alone. Please, someone come. The other's there. They're dead.
They killed them. They killed them all. He has a conversation with Rousseau. He tells her about Nadia. He says,
She's dead.
They learn each other's first names. This is where we find out that he starts calling her Danielle, and other than in the flash sideways and with Danielle's original French crew, no one else calls her this. No one else extends her the humanity that Sayid does, even though she tortured him for information he did not have. He fixes Rousseau's music box and gives her something that she hasn't heard in so long.
You see? Some things can be fixed.
And Sayid breaks away, and she doesn't want to let him leave, but eventually she does. It is heartbreaking for the two of them. But we learned something about Sayid at this point. He takes the maps, he goes back to the camp because there is new information that will help these people get off the island. And it's not about Sayid and his comfort or his pride for failing Nadia, for failing his past self by breaking his old standards. It is about helping the 815ers. So he goes back to camp.
You know, a less magnanimous man than I might just be thinking he could beat the ever-living snot out of you right now without fear of reprisal.
You want a shot? Take it. Know that I left this camp out of shame for what I did to you. It was never my intention to return.
Sorry. Fresh out of sweet forgiveness.
Before I hop into Henry, I want to do a sideline thing that I didn't put in my script, but I want to talk about Shannon, her death, Ana Lucia, and Sayid, specifically Ana Lucia and Sayid. We see Sayid give Shannon his heart in the middle of a storm while she's kind of having a mental breakdown after Boone was killed or died, depending on how you land on the issue. He confesses his love to her. He says, I will never leave you, and I love you, and I believe you.
I will never leave you. I love you, and I believe you.
You do?
I do.
They see Walt together. They share this hallucination. And then seconds later, she is shot dead. Look at Sayid. His fury, his desperation, his devastation. Later, Ana Lucia ties him to a tree, and she sits there and she fucks with this gun. She's in the middle of a PTSD response. She doesn't know what's going to happen to her. She doesn't really know Sayid's background. And he says, are you going to kill me? And she says, should I? And then Sayid tells her the truth. He says, I was a soldier. I tortured people. I did things that I cannot forget. Should you kill me? Maybe you should.
Maybe you were meant to.
She does not. She lets him go. And they have some sort of understanding. Are they buddies? No. But there's something between the two of them, the toll that comes from taking lives as part of your job, they understand each other. And this is where we really learn when Henry Gale comes into the picture. Rousseau is searching the jungle. Ana Lucia comes to Sayid and is like, where's Jack? There's a woman here. And Sayid says, let me take this, this is my bitch, not Jack's, okay? Sayid goes to Rousseau and says, Danielle, what the fuck? And she takes him to a man in a trap. Probably the most whiny, mousy little motherfucker I've ever seen in my life. He says, my name is Henry Gale. I'm from Minnesota. What's going on? And he keeps asking questions while they're saying he's one of the others, blah, 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 blah. Sayid cuts the trap down. Henry Gale starts to run. Rousseau naturally shoots him with a bow, as one does. Sayid takes Henry Gale back to the hatch. Before he does that, Rousseau says, he will lie for a very long time. They get into the hatch and Sayid wakes up John. He's like, yo, we have a bit of an issue. He and John Locke start asking questions. Henry is doing a very good job of being bewildered. But Jack steps in and is like, I'm sorry, what the fuck is going on? You're just gonna leave this guy to bleed out? And Sayid says, hey dude, this is not that serious of an injury. But as Jack is tending to the wound, pretending that he's never done any harm ever, Sayid looks at John Locke and says, does Jack know the combo to the safe? Because if not, we need to switch that up because he's going to have a problem with what it takes to get the information from this man because I don't believe him.
I want to find out who he is. I want the truth. And I think we both know that Jack will have issues with what must be done in order to get it.
And John takes a second. He's a little concerned. I think he's not just concerned about getting the information, but he's concerned about whatever Jack's gonna do when he finds out that John's changed the safe combo. But he changes it. And that leaves Sayid alone in the gun safe, without the guns, with Henry Gale.
What the hell are you doing?
What needs to be done?
And this is when things get really real. What we know about Henry Gale is that his name is Ben Linus, that he's not Henry Gale, and that Ben Linus has an answer to everything. He knows how to get out of almost everything. He is an incredibly convincing person, a convincing witness, and a controlling man. He's on top of it. Everything that he misses in physical prowess, he has mentally. Sayid goes toe to toe for this man, but Henry Gale has most of the answers to the questions he's asking. Where's this balloon that you flew in on? What happened to your wife? Ba 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 ba.
Please, just tell me your name.
Your wife. What is her maiden name?
Murphy.
Where did you meet her?
University of Minnesota.
How did she die?
She got sick.
And Henry Gale is incredibly emotional. He's sad, he's upset, and he says, I don't know how long it took to bury her. And Sayid says, you would remember every shovelful of earth. You would not forget if you had to bury the woman you loved, you would remember. And Ben says,
Did you lose someone?
And Sayid, after all the time that Henry has asked questions back, and other what? All these things. He wants to know what these guys are thinking, because the more information that he can get from them, the better chance he has at skewing the situation. Sayid says it was an accident. It was an accident. The woman who did it thought that she was coming to hurt them, thought it was someone else.
Someone like you.
Sayid does not forget. He says, you might know this information now, that I lost someone, but you will also know that I haven't lost sight of who you are, what you are. And he was right, because he went and dug up that grave and found out that Henry Gale was dead in the dirt. This was Ben Linus. As an honorable mention, there are two. One, just at the lie detector version of Sayid. When the mercenaries / scientists have come to the island and everybody's trying to figure out if they should go with Ben and Locke or Jack, are we trying to get off the island or are we trying to hide? Sayid explains to Miles that there has been a fundamental debate as to whether or not your people are coming to kill us or save us. If I got that wording right, then I kick ass, because I did not put that in my script.
There was a fundamental debate as to whether your people were coming to rescue us or kill us.
And Miles says, well, which side of the debate did you land on? And Sayid says, I'll let you know when I decide. I've always thought that that was based because Sayid, he knows, he can tell the truth, but that doesn't mean that he knows it immediately. He's on a fact-finding mission, right? And the second thing that I can't really get into, but I did want to get into, was Sayid killing Kid Ben, or shooting him. When we, as an audience, suspend remorse, this is one of the times where it gets really difficult, because half of the 815ers who have returned to the island really have an issue with Sayid trying to kill Kid Ben, and half of them are totally on board.
Juliet said the kid's losing blood and we ain't got nothing to put back in him, so we need you to show us where he sprung a leak.
No.
What?
He's a kid now? Oh, but we know who he grows up to be. He's a kid now. We know who he grows up to be. We wouldn't be in a lot of these situations if it weren't for this evil man. Where does it lie? That is an extremely complex situation, so we're not going to get into it today. But I just wanted to mention, honorable mention, killing Kid Ben.
I remember you. I remember your face. Your face has haunted me ever since I left Iraq.
Chapter 3, I Know Your Face. And now we land at Enter 77. An incredibly intense episode, because every time we meet another other, even though we've seen Hydra Island and all kinds of shit at this point, meeting another other is always a little bit scary. And we meet one of the deadliest others, Mikhail. Sayid, Rousseau, Kate, and Locke are in the jungle. They are trying to find Jack. They have no clue where they're going except a heading from Mr. Echo's Jesus stick, and Sayid is over it. And he's like, John, we're gonna have an adult conversation about where we're going after I find some fruit. Sayid goes and finds the fruit, and he also finds a cow and a little farm and a bunch of shit that looks like, wow, someone is inhabiting this space. Sayid gives Kate his gun, says, I'm gonna be unarmed, I'm gonna go, and that's my cat, and I'm gonna try to chat with this person. He comes out, his hands are up, and he gets shot. Through this episode, I'm just going to tell the on-island storyline real quickly, but I will come back and forth. Mikhail says,
My name is Mikhail Bakunin, and I'm the last living member of the Dharma Initiative.
He tells a lie. Sayid has caught that he's lying because there's a horse outside. It's saddled for someone too short to be Mikhail's size riding this horse. So Sayid's clocking all of this stuff. And while Mikhail is stitching up Sayid, there's a cat named Nadia, after Nadia Komensky. Put it right here.
After Nadia Comaneci, the greatest athlete the world has ever known. We have the same birthday.
and she's scratching at the floor. And Mikhail says, Nadia, be polite. I have guests. But Sayid clocks that too. He's taking note of all of these things. Locke is in the other room screwing with a computer because there's chess and he's playing chess. He's playing the computer. We'll get there in a second. But Kate, Sayid, and Mikhail have it out. There's my cat jumping down. What are we doing, Boo-Boo? Cat interruption, cat interruption, cat interruption, cat interruption. And there comes to be a shoot-off at the end of this. They kill the other person that was in Mikhail's cabin, and Sayid has the opportunity to kill Mikhail. And Rousseau, who did not get involved in this because she said, hey, I've survived on this island 16 years because I have nothing to do with these people, so if I see one, I don't confront them, I run.
I have no interest in that man inside the house. I have survived on the island precisely by avoiding these types of encounters. I'll wait for you by the stream, for those of you who survive.
But after the confrontation is over, Rousseau says, you should kill this guy. But he doesn't. And here's why. And he's playing chess, he's playing the computer. We'll get there in a second. Okay, so actually I didn't, I forgot, but it's because it has like nothing to do with what this video is about, because this video is literally an extended scene breakdown. But what happens is Locke beats the chess computer and it comes up with a menu option of a bunch of things that he can select. And what we learn is that the comms are down, the communication with Dharma is down, blah, 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 blah. But one of the options is if there's been an incursion of the hostiles, then enter 77. And Locke kind of toils over this, but eventually enters 77. He doesn't toil over this. He gets caught by Mikhail, so at knife point. And then later he comes back and hits 77. Sorry. And once they are out, well out of the cabin and everything, the cabin blows up. So it's like, oh, way to go. I don't usually tell flashbacks at the same time as the story. I think for video purposes, it's not the easiest way to do things for me. So I don't do it. But because we're here and I decided not to weave them together the way that they are, this is what we see. Sayid is a chef and he is called out by a customer to give his compliments to the chef. He says, wow, this is really delicious food. Sit down. Nice to meet you. I'm Sammy. By the way, where are you from? Sayid says, I'm from Syria. And Sammy stops and says,
والله يا أخي أنت كثير يبين لك إراغي مثلي.
And Sayid says, what do you want? And he's like, dude, my chef just quit. You're a good cook. I'll pay you more than what you're being paid here. Come on. And Said's like, why? He said, because we're both outsiders here. Hang on, my cat wants out.
I'm offering you a job because we're outsiders here. And because my chef just quit.
Go on, Bill. Go on. Go on. Cat interruption, cat interruption, cat interruption, cat interruption. Sayid kind of smiles, and he does seem to have some optimism that when it cuts to on island, when he's walking up like this, there's fear in his eyes that I hadn't clocked before. I noticed it and I thought, Jesus, there's a difference between these two Sayids. Sayid goes to Sammy's restaurant and he meets some of the people there. He's like, wow, this is a really nice place. And then he is introduced to Sammy's wife, Amira. They shake hands and she says, it's him. Sammy's like, are you sure? And she's like, absolutely. So Sammy takes Sayid, chains him up in the kitchen. Amira runs the kitchen, by the way. And he starts asking Sayid some very difficult questions with quite a bit of force. You tortured my wife. I didn't. You tortured my wife.
Amira was arrested for harboring an enemy of the state. She was held for 3 months while she was questioned. Her arms bear the scars of those questions. So I assure you, Najif, I am not confused.
And Sayid says, I'm sorry. I did torture people, but I never tortured a woman. I can't admit to something. And he goes, she did. She did. After you poured that oil on her, she admitted to something that she didn't do.
She confessed when you poured a pan of boiling oil over her arm.
No, I did not. You have to admit it! Admit it!
You don't lie anymore. You tortured my wife. And he starts beating the shit out of him. They've had a couple questioning sessions, but at this point, Amanda says, hey, knock it off. This is enough for today. Just because I've dealt with violence doesn't mean I take pleasure in it. You can tell. Stop. And the husband, respecting his wife more than he hates anyone who's harmed her, walks away. But later, a different day, Amira comes in with her cat. And she says, when I moved here to Paris with my husband, I was too afraid to go outside. I would sit and I'd watch this cat in the alleyway 3 stories down, beg for scraps and hunt around and stuff. But one day, a bunch of kids put him in a box and lit firecrackers. And I heard him howling in pain.
So finally, I had a reason to leave my apartment. I rescued this cat, and I brought him home.
Now, this cat, he's so sweet. He reads with me, and he snuggles with me, and he purrs. But like I said at the beginning of this,
every once in a while, he will bite me or scratch me.
He does this because sometimes
he forgets that he is safe now. So I forgive him because I know what it is like to never feel safe. And that is because of you.
This is a woman we don't know. We will never see her again in this entire show. Sayid is not a very emotional character. He does not break easily. And there he is. She says, respect me enough to admit what you did. Don't lie. You know me. You remember me. And Sayid says, I remember you. I remember your face.
Your face has haunted me ever since I left Iraq. I am sorry. I am so sorry for what I did to you.
And she says, I forgive you. I will tell my husband to let you go, and I will say I made a terrible mistake. And he says, why? Because we are all capable of doing what those children did to this cat, but I will not do that. I will not be that. At the end of the show, we get beyond this moment. Sayid is up against the decision, shall he kill Mikhail? But his cat Nadia is right there, and they're not the same cat, but Nadia has long hair, and Nadia is a beautiful cat. And so for that moment, he is reminded of the mercy that Amira gave him, and he extends the same mercy. I'm going to show a reaction that I had to this because it is an extremely emotional scene. And I've seen it, bunches of times. I don't know, probably a dozen now. It still hits. It hits hard.
I ask you now that you show me the respect of acknowledging what you did to me. That it was you who questioned me and that you remember me.
I am so sorry for what I did to you. I am...
I forgive you. When my husband returns, I will tell him I made a terrible mistake. That it was not you. And he will release you.
Why?
We are all capable of doing what those children did to this guy. But I will not do that. I will not be that.
We don't know Amira. We won't see her again. We don't really know Mikhail, and we barely know Nadia, but we know Sayid, and we know what it takes to break him. We saw you would remember every shovel full of earth. The same emotion there, talking about Shannon and his love for Shannon, and talking about, I remember your face. You've haunted me. Someone in my comments about my 7-hour Lost video said that there's like a theory that Sayid lied and that he said that it was him just to get out of the situation or something like that. He may have. We don't know if he lied, if he was being truthful or not. I don't know if he would have lied to get out of it. I don't think he would have. At that point, I think he had accepted his fate. However, it doesn't matter because in that room, there was the tortured and the torturer. And the tortured didn't need to give forgiveness, but this torturer desperately needed forgiveness. And she extends that. She grants it. And even though he desperately needed it, he never expected it, never asked for it because why would you give it? A tortured woman gives a torturer forgiveness, and both of them are able to leave that room, not in a body bag. And that is the point of the scene, not whether or not he was telling the truth. So there was basically a storm going on when I filmed this, but I really felt like filming it, but I only used my cell phone audio, and it is a real mess, but I made some really good points, and I was so dramatic about it, so I wanted to keep it. I'm so sorry. It's bad. I'm so sorry. She is holding a cat that is purring, happy, content. She is sitting in a chair. He is kneeling, shackled. In this moment, does it matter if it was him who tortured her being tortured by him? In this moment, the tortured and the torturer are in the same space, in the same room. She is in a place of power for once, a woman from Iraq who has been questioned, tortured on her principles, right? And this man who broke his over, no matter how often they said, "This is you, Sayid. You have it in you. You have it in you to be this man. You're good at this. How do you feel about being promoted? You can break a bird's neck. My name is Sayid Tarah, and I am a torturer." He is contrite, truly. The tortured does not need to, and probably in many cases shouldn't, forgive a torturer. The torturer in many cases is surely not contrite. I believe Sayid in his moment of true remorse, someone who doesn't want to repeat the same mistakes, right? So she forgives him. Did he torture her specifically? I don't know. Does it matter? Because both of those things still happened. It could be symbolic. And he is let go, right? And he is able to try to pursue a life free from harming people, to get information on just what he wants, or to be safe from the other repercussions of what he does, until he comes to the island, and we've already covered that, or we will, I don't know. And this cat is so loving and so at peace right there in the midst of a very dangerous man, because the cat has his rescuer there. What a powerful scene. And Sayid in this moment received his forgiveness. But he goes on and on to lambaste himself because of his past. Will never really forgive himself. He may have received forgiveness from one woman, and that's great, but never himself. Never himself. The rules are suspended. Things are forgiven. Forgiveness is granted. And it's his to take. And then later on, it's his to leave. It is sincerely one of the most powerful scenes in Lost. What a choice, because as the audience, it still stays embedded in you, even though it doesn't really seem like, particularly when we're walking away from Inner 77, that the biggest information there is that Sayid tortured this woman. The biggest information is that there's another Dharma station, a man who lived there, and there was outside communication. That's the takeaway, right? But the scene haunts me. When Sayid is faced with the decision whether or not he should kill Mikhail, he sees Nadia the cat, and he says, "No, I'm good. I'm going to keep him prisoner." Ultimately, we know that it probably would have been better if Mikhail was dead, other than him helping Nadia. Not Nadia, oh my God, Naomi. He kind of sucks. He kind of did some shitty stuff. But that was Sayid's decision, and it's a decision he wouldn't have made had he not seen the cat. Maybe. Probably. I don't know. That scene, hits. And I thought, we should talk about it. So that's all for today. I'm gonna get you out of here early. Nice short Lars Land video. They do exist on occasion. I hope y'all had a good time with me talking about a very upsetting scene. I'm gonna dig in, do a bunch of Lost mini deep dives coming forward before I do that crazy long video. But in the meantime, tell me what you wanna see and tell me what you think. I love y'all so much. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment if you're nasty, or if you're fancy. I don't really care either way. I love y'all so much. And y'all come back now, you hear? Bye.
My sweet Lord. My Lord. Lord. But it takes so long, my Lord. My sweet Lord.